My name is Rachal. I'm a quadruple board certified physician in adult and pediatric infectious disease and board certified in internal medicine and pediatrics. I spend a lot of time with our internal medicine and pediatrics residents, as well as our fellows in both adult and pediatric infectious disease, preparing them for boards, and also a big part of their board review program. Building up a prep plan that boosts confidence really includes trying to study like you're trying to take the test. And what I mean by that is where you study in blocks that would be just about as long as a block of the test itself. And so you're used to actually sitting and doing questions in a timely manner where there is a timer ticking, so that whenever you actually sit the test, you're very comfortable being in that setting, answering questions, pretty quickly back to back, sifting through things that sifting through things you don't know, and not spending a lot of time on the questions that you don't know, and moving on to questions that hopefully will come your way that you're like, yes, I know the answer. That kind of studying at home that mimics what you would do in the test is very important to build confidence. The three problems that I find people studying for their boards often encounter are the following. The first being an overly zealous timeline or procrastinating through the timeline. And the way to avoid that is to make a schedule that actually works for you and works for the work volume that you're going to be doing. So don't try and give yourself 40 hours a week of questions whenever you're doing 80 hours a week of work. It's just not going to happen. You're going to fall behind. So you have to be realistic with yourself. The other problem that I frequently see with people who are having, issues with their study plan are focusing on the serotonin boosters more than the things that make them feel bad whenever they're studying them. I really like talking about the sandwich method, which is the putting something that very short, 10 questions of that, then studying 50 questions of something that's really hard for you, followed by 5 of something that you really like. And that way you get a confidence boost at the beginning and end, and it kind of makes up for whatever happened in the middle. And the third problem would just be I know I'm supposed to study today, but I just don't have the energy, time, or mental space to do so, and kind of breaking through that mental barrier of getting to study, which for me is read a paragraph, do 10 questions. And often that will get you through the barrier of I just can't do it today. And I think that's, even though that's a bare minimum, if you will, it does often motivate you enough to be in a spot where you're like, yeah, I could actually probably do a little bit more than this. And whenever you break big things down into small chunks, it's a lot easier to digest. In preparing the night before, I think it's really important to recognize that there's nothing more you can shove into your brain that you're going to be able to regurgitate the next day. There may be and there's topics in everybody's fields that are, I refer to them as the learn it and leave it topics. And those are things that I always have for my exams is just 2 topics specifically that I'm going to review the night before and the day of whenever I wake up, that are areas that I just need to be able to put it down on the sheet whenever they give it to me, so that I feel very confident if I do get a question about statistics, being able to use the equations as quickly as I possibly can rather than having to think through what the equation is in my head. The second bit, other than leaving it to just 2 areas, and I mean very 2 specific areas that you're going to review, is actually trying to spend the evening doing something relaxing that you enjoy. I always either go to a movie or I watch a movie on TV. I am a French fanatic, and so normally it's Amélie. I'm going to tell you, Amélie is basically the movie I watch before every single one of my board exams, and it just kind of puts me in a good mood. And I normally have a salad with chicken in it for dinner the night before, and I think it's just probably because I feel like it's something that isn't going to make me sick the day afterwards. And I encourage everyone to eat a meal that is very filling and healthy, and something that is not going to give them a tummy ache for the day afterwards. And normally for me, that means going to Panera. And that's because I can kind of find it no matter where I'm having to take my test. And yeah, getting a good night's sleep is really important. As far as handling your nerves, I often encourage my medical students, my residents, my fellows, to find activities that bring them not only joy, but calmness, if that makes sense. And there's a variety of different things within these activities and time lengths of these activities that can be great. Being outside, going for a walk, hot showers, bubble baths, cups of tea, whatever works best for you, and discovering these things while you're actually studying for your exams and while you're in training and residency are going to be incredibly helpful, not only for the board exam, but also for your future career, to understand how to unwind and de-stress whenever you get to stressful situations. There will be distractions that happen on the day of the test, and in order to overcome these distractions, obviously bringing your own earplugs is very, very helpful. I also find that I always get cold in the testing centers, and making sure that you understand your own temperature regulation and dress accordingly. Layers are highly recommended. Some testing centers are very cold, like a morgue, and others you would feel like you're out in the tropics. And so it's important to kind of dress in that way, because that can also affect how you're going to feel during the test. Because if you feel like you're dying of heat, you're going to want to get up and leave sooner than you need to. And so I think to prepare for some of the distractions as far as noise, etc. go, I would say studying some of your blocks in a busier section of a library or in a noisier area could be very helpful for your question blocks. And so that way you're able to get through the block of the random person coughing, the person making way too much noise with their slushie who's 5 blocks down. They won't have a slushie, but along those lines, it could be very helpful. I encourage all of my trainees to reset between the portions of exam by leaving the computer area, unless you feel like you're, really going to do better in front of the computer. I'm going to tell you you're not. It is always better to do some kind of kinetic activity in between exam sections, and whether it be you're just going to walk over to the locker to get some water, do something where you're actively moving out of the exam room. Focusing on all the questions you missed and writing down, I have no idea which metabolic pathway they were trying to come at from this question, I'm going to ask my friend later, is not going to help you get through your next set of questions, okay? And in fact, it's definitely going to psych you out in a way that you don't want it to. So focusing on the world outside of the exam during your breaks is very important. For the mid-test meltdown, I would tell you, think about what's in your lunchbox and think about what you're going to do after you take this test, and think about all of the great things that you've done so far in your career as a physician. All of these things are great. We all have moments where we're weaker, we all have moments where we're stronger, but you're gonna get through this. And yeah, it might have been a horrific block of questions where you were like, I have no earthly idea. But you can only hope that the next set of questions that are going to come your way are going to give you grace, and that you're going to get out of that test. And no matter what the outcome is, you are still a doctor at the end of the day, and you've still made an incredible journey, and you have so much more to learn and do in your career that this test cannot define you.